Welcome to 5 Good Minutes.
You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Ecclesiastes with Kurt Bjorklund.
When the Koheleth, or the teacher, is teaching in chapter 4, basically, the gatherer, the convener, he says that it's hard to understand oppression and that it's better to have never been born. And then he turns to envy. Verse 4 and 5, he says, "Then I saw all the toil and all the skill and work come from man's envy of his neighbor. This also is vanity," again, havel, "and a striving after the wind." So now he comes back to this you're being driven by your envy of somebody else. And this word envy in the Hebrew is the word genah, and it can have either a negative or a positive moral connotation, depending on the exact context. So kind of like the word zeal, where you can have a zeal for something that's good or a zeal for something that's bad. And he says the fool folds his hands and eats his own flesh. So now he's again comparing these two different approaches. One is an envy that drives work. And he says, this is vanity, a striving after the wind, because you're saying, I want to be on the same level as somebody else. But then he says it's foolish at the same time to fold your hands, which means not to work and to eat his own flesh. And it's probably just an allusion to devouring himself because he won't work. And so there's really the extreme of being driven out of envy to do more than you need to do and not being content, and laziness that says I won't work because I can't get what somebody else has. And so the question in many ways for somebody today reading this is how much are you striving in order to keep up with a standard of living that you think is necessary because you're comparing yourself with somebody else? Are you working in order to say, I have this, versus working to bring good to the world? Or are you folding your hands and saying it's no use, I can't get there? Envy is ultimately something that is super destructive in our lives. In Psalms chapter 73, I believe it is, I'm going to get there in just a second, we see this in verse 20 and 21 and following. When my soul was embittered, when I pricked in my heart, I was brutish and ignorant. I was like a beast towards you. Now, if you go back and read through this psalm, what you see is that this is talking in many ways about envy and what happens. Verse 3, "For I was envious of the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked." And here's how Paul David Tripp talks about envy. He says, "The driven, watchful envy of a horizontal, pleasure-oriented heart will make us crazy. It will not only rob us of our satisfaction and joy, but it will make us more like brutes than friends. It will eat our hearts and consume our souls." So what does envy do? It pushes us to a point where we don't live for God's glory, for the good of other people, or even for our own good. What we're simply doing is saying, I want more and more because I want to be on the same field with somebody else. Today, my question for you is, where is envy driving your decisions? And what would it look like for you to simply say, God is the one who lifts people up, gives them a place, therefore I don't need to strive. It's better to live with contentment, and this will lead us directly into what we see tomorrow in terms of it's better to live in quietness.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.